I am ready to mix my cheesecake batter. So one thing that's very, very key is that your cream cheese needs to be really soft. I can really just run my finger through this and I would leave marks in there. The light is just like that. So really, really soft. If your cream cheese is too firm, you will end up over mixing this batter, and what we'll end up with is a very dry cheesecake. So we want to make sure this is nice and moist and dense. I am going to be using a beater blade paddle attachment, so it actually has this silicone piece on the side which scrapes the bowl as it's going around. So you won't see me scraping my batter as much as I would if I was using a standard paddle attachment. It's key that you're scraping often because the very firm cheese will get stuck around the outside of the bowl and it won't incorporate evenly with all the ingredients if you're not scraping. So I'm going to start with getting my cream cheese in the bowl. Nice and soft. So you can leave your cream cheese out at room temperature for a few hours to get it to a nice soft consistency, or you can always soften it in the microwave in just short bursts of time, nothing more than 20 or 30 seconds, and then you want to make sure that you're stirring and pressing that often so that it's warming evenly. I have my granulated sugar here, and then I'm going to be using cornstarch. I like to use the sugar as kind of a carrier for my cornstarch. So I'm going to go ahead and get these two mixed together and before I add this to my cream cheese. We're gonna mix these first three ingredients on the low speed, and we are gonna mix the cheesecake batter on low the entire time. This is gonna help us keep a batter that's really nice and firm and a finished cheesecake that is very dense and rich. If you over mix cheesecake batter, it's very runny, and then your finished cheesecake will be very dry, and it's not as pleasant to eat. So we want to make sure that we are keeping that really nice, dense, luxurious texture. So I'm just going to start this on low, and I'm going to mix this until I don't see any lumps at all in the cream cheese. This is our only chance to get the cream cheese smooth. Once we start incorporating our other ingredients, if there are lumps present, they will never come out and they will stay there the entire time. You won't see them as boldly on a cheesecake like this that is still fairly white or ivory. But if we were making, for example, a chocolate cheesecake, you would actually see little white dots of all the lumps of the cream cheese, and those don't ever bake out. So we really want to make sure this is really smooth. I'm going to give this a quick scrape to make sure that I don't have anything hanging around on the paddle attachment. That would get stuck there and would never end up getting mixed in to my batter. And while I'm in here, give a quick scrape to this all the way down to the bottom. So this is fairly smooth, but I can still see a few lumps in here. So I'm gonna make sure and keep mixing so this is as smooth as possible. Okay, this is really beautiful and smooth. I don't have any lumps in there. That is terrible brightness. Oh, there we go. Really, really smooth. So now I'm going to start adding in my eggs. just like if I was doing creaming method for a cookie or a cake batter, I am going to add these eggs in one by one, making sure that each addition is fully incorporated before I add the next. You need to keep an eye out. You may also need to be scraping in between each addition so that this mixture gets the texture changed gradually. If you have any cream cheese that's sticking around the sides of the bowl that you aren't getting scraped off in between each addition of eggs, you'll end up with these two separate textures that you'll have to overmix to be able to get them to incorporate. Give this another scrape. Everything is still so smooth, exactly what I want to see. Oops. Making sure to scrape underneath where that paddle attachment hits the bottom of the bowl. Sometimes that's where you get a lot of sticking of the stiffer cream cheese down there. Make sure all of that is being evenly incorporated. Now I'm going to go ahead and add the rest of my ingredients. So I was running really low on lemon, so I am using a combination of lemon and lime zest. You could definitely make this recipe just with vanilla and make a really delicious vanilla cheesecake. The lemon addition just gives it a nice amount of brightness. So I'm going to have this mixing on low speed while I am adding in my heavy cream. Okay, now my batter is mixed. I have my pan, has my par-baked crust, and I have this on a half-sheet pan. The recipe says to put your pan in your springform pan in a hotel pan. I don't have a hotel pan, so half-sheet pan is what I'm going to use. Pour this all in. Okay. So I want to bake my cheesecake with a water bath. What that does is it insulates the cheesecake from extreme temperatures. So if I put this in the oven right now as it is, the metal is going to conduct heat, and I would get over baking around the outside. What can also happen is you start to see cracks in the top, and we want to have a perfectly smooth surface. So I'm going to fill this pan only halfway full with hot water, and I'm going to keep an eye on this while it's baking. Because I'm baking in such a shallow pan, I may have water that evaporates too far during the baking process. So about every 30 minutes or so, I'm going to come and check it and see if I need to refill the water in this. I'm going to wait until I get this in the oven before I add that water, because I don't want to be trying to carry this to the oven while I have water in here in this really shallow pan and it's sloshing around everywhere. So my pan is in position, and I'm just going to very gently pour that water in. And I'm just keeping an eye on how full this is. I want to get this basically as full as possible without worrying that it's going to spill over the edge. Gently just push that back in. I am checking for doneness on my cheesecake, so I'm just gonna give this a tap And you can see just that gentle wobble in the middle, and that's exactly what I am looking for. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this out of the oven. For safety, I'm gonna leave my sheet pan that still has water in it, and I'll just turn off the oven and let it cool down in there so that when I take it out, if a little happens to spill, I won't run the chance of burning myself really badly. The cheesecake is going to just cool to room temperature, and then I'm going to put it in the refrigerator overnight.